Peace, 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 family. We're back with another broadcast, DOATBM podcast on Anchor FM. And you know, you're tuning in courtesy About That Online. You can definitely check this podcast out on Anchor FM. You can check it out on Spotify. You can check it out on Apple Podcasts, Deezer, and all other podcast platforms. Major big ups to Anchor FM for being a stellar platform host. And as we continue forward, we're looking forward to continue building a positive relationship. With that being said, we're back with another episode this week, joined by the esteemed Dino Spumoni.
That's what's up, man. That's what's up. How you doing, man?
Yeah, you took a bit of time to answer that intro. I don't know if there's a delay on the connection.
I don't know. I'm answering as soon as I hear you. So
yeah, no. So I get sometimes you can never tell. Sometimes we get a faster connection. Sometimes we get a slower connection. It's just the breaks. But with that being said, welcome back. It was definitely a pleasure having you on the last podcast. Did you have fun?
Yeah, man. It's a pleasure to be back. I've been listening to all your videos now. I think I've quite caught up with all of them. So it's just a pleasure to be back as well. You know what I mean? I'm glad to be part of it again.
Yeah,
the breeze on another topic.
Well, this is it. We're back with another one, and this is the thing. The crucial thing about DOATBM, last time we had Craig Pinckney, criminologist. We've had Brandon Smith from out in Ohio from the Hood Therapy Podcast join us. We're going to have Keith Snyder coming up soon from the U.S. talking about anxiety against anxiety with Black males. So we're touching quite a few different people with different backgrounds. And even though our guests, like yourself included, come with a different story, come with a different level of expertise and a different experience just within life, but it's crazy how a lot of the stuff we all see seems to correlate at the same time.
Exactly. I mean, it's just I just think that the way society is going at the moment is just I don't like it, but it is what it is. We've got to deal with the situation we're in,
Well, this is it, and it's definitely a time now we're seeing more civil discourse. We recently saw Dave Chappelle. He released a new special. I don't know if you had the chance to check that out yet. That was quite interesting. He spoke a lot about the recent events, and we've been seeing it. We haven't had a chance to speak on air about it. We've done a few bits and bobs, but nothing in depth. So I guess this is the time for us to really explore this whole Black Lives Matter thing, for us to explore the George Floyd situation and things that are going down.
Exactly. I mean, what we like to do is we like to speak about things that are prominent in the world at the moment. We feel that will capture the attention of people. And obviously, it makes sense, to talk about things that are completely relevant, And obviously, this is the main thing now. Coronavirus is kind of taking a back seat. And this is the main thing prevalent, not just in the UK and the US, but I would say around the world. This is kind of the main talking point around the world at the moment, isn't it? Really, I'd say. Because you've got protests in Nigeria, there's France, Italy. I even saw things in Australia as well. So it really is capturing everyone's attention.
Portugal. Yeah, there's been quite a few places.
Yeah, Portugal as well. Yeah, Lisbon, yeah.
On the map, we haven't seen a protest. But with that being said, this is an interesting one because at some of these protests, we've also seen a lot of unrest has been caused at the back of it. Now, in one aspect, we've seen the celebratory side of the protest where different people from different, faiths, creeds, orientations, backgrounds, and everything are all, coming together in support of a cause. But we're also seeing it rubbing a lot of people up the wrong way. Recently in London, there was a huge influx of football counter-protests, counter-demonstrations. And I mean, one of the good things I seen was a video with Mega Man from Soul Solid, peace to Mega Man and big him up, man, because they was on the front line there protecting the people. And they let it be known to some of the counter protesters or the EDL or the hooligans, I don't know whatever they refer to themselves as. They're being referred to in the media as the far right. But, he said to we're here to protect our people. We're not interested in any statues or taking down any statues and stuff. And it led me to something that I discussed before. I'm not sure, maybe with you, but I know I've discussed it with others, that when I started to notice a lot of this backlash was especially when the statue came down in Bristol. And off the back of that, everything in the media, even when Priti Patel and them were doing their stuff in Parliament, it was all like sort of condemning Black Lives Matter, but they use the Black Lives Matter tag, which automatically has an association with black. So even sometimes when you see these counter protests like we did, it's predominantly white. There wasn't nobody black in their group, you know. So it sort of levies the idea that blacks took down the statue, or blacks are trying to destroy the place, or blacks are doing this, or blacks are doing that. So I think there's a lot of things going on within the sort of Black Lives Matter umbrella that's skewering the reputation of blacks somewhat at the same time, because they're putting a heavy emphasis on it. But when we get to the bottom of it, there's a lot of people saying, well, you know, there's different institutions and organizations behind the cause. There's people with their own motives that have intercepted it. I mean, what do you think? Have you know?
Yeah, so on the point you just said then, I mean, some would argue that this has been like socially engineered. This kind of unrest that we're seeing now has been socially engineered to deliberately create this tension between different ethnic groups and different groups in society. And in relation to what you said then as well, there's actually a video going around. Obviously, Minneapolis is where George Floyd was murdered. That's the kind of the epicenter of the start of this whole, you know, Black Lives Matter movement. Again, obviously, it's been in the past, but it's come back around. Yeah. And there's actually footage of policemen smashing up their own police cars. So
I believe I've seen it.
Yeah. You've seen the video. So the media and people have you believe, you know, black people are causing all sorts of destruction. And of course there are some, but there's actually footage going around. Someone had their phone recording them. They didn't know they were being recorded as well, because everyone's got camera phones nowadays. Being recorded, smashing up their own police cars, smashing up buildings. And this is the police doing that. So to make it look like, go on.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean, to sort of intensify the situation. It sort of reminds me of what Laval was speaking about on the BBC News, because he was out there in the protest, peacefully protesting out in Louisville. And he said the police started, you know, being overly aggressive with the people, firing gas canisters into the crowd and stuff, and inciting the situation sometimes when there was no situation that was actually there. And then, you know, I've seen, like you said, online, people have sent me videos with, there's a video with police loading up bricks in the States and you know.
Yeah, I was going to mention that, yeah.
You know, they're leaving these bricks out and
yeah. I couldn't believe that when I saw that. They were actually strategically leaving bricks where they knew demonstrators were going to be.
Yeah.
And when I saw that about 2 weeks ago, kind of at the beginning of all this, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was like, when people say these situations are socially engineered by the powers that be at the top, when I see stuff like that, I start to believe it. You know, I do start to think to myself.
I mean, there's definitely always ranks and positions to think, but even taking that concept, another thing that I didn't notice is, you know, not just the police, there's saboteurs within the BLM sort of structure, because, you know, along with the age of the internet, like you said, we've seen videos of the police and stuff. We've seen videos of other people in these protests, non-black people, you know, starting fires, destroying things. And we've seen people have managed to catch them on camera and say, stop doing it because we're going to get the blame for it. So what I'm saying is there's, you know, at the minute with these protests, you've got some people who are like career protesters. They've got their ilks against the system and stuff like that. Some of them you know, that one week they're out demonstrating for this, the next week they're out demonstrating for that. So, and some of them, you know, they've got their own agendas. Like you hear of these organizations like Extinct Rebellion and the ones who wear the masks as well, Anonymous. So some of these people, they come to these protests and they start troublemaking as well. You know, they may want to say, oh, let's start a fire, let's you know, down with the corporation, oh, let's take down this statue and stuff. So it's not necessarily black people, because even with the statue in Bristol, you know, there's more white people there than black people, and most of the black people there, I don't think they probably even would have knew who that statue is or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
I mean, like you said yourself, you just said there, there's career protesters. A lot of people are just jumping on this bandwagon. They love to protest. They love to be seen to be, you know, part of whatever's trending, whatever movement's trending at that particular time. So a lot of these people are just there for the ride. They don't really care the issue at hand. All they care about is just being part of the trend. They don't want to miss out. It's kind of this modern generation we're at the moment. It's like people don't want to miss out on whatever the main trend is. So I think that's the case with a lot of people just jumping on this bandwagon. You know? And I don't think that's right. If you're going to protest and you're going to be part of it, be part of it because you feel there's an injustice and you want to be part of the change, rather than you just getting involved because you want to get out of the house after quarantine. You just want to be part of the movement. Be part of it. People want to be part of everything nowadays. They don't want to miss out. It's the fear of missing out, FOMO, and that's the society we're in at the moment. This social media age, people just don't want to miss out on things. And whatever's trending, whatever's trendy, they have to be part of that and they have to be involved.
Well, is that
and that's what we're seeing at the moment.
Is that what would you say we're seeing that somewhat with because if we take it up a step, for one of the first times in most of our kind of modern recollection, we're seeing, even corporations, companies coming out and making statements and saying, we're siding with Black Lives Matter, and you've got all these organizations like, big companies, and you're thinking, wow, like where did this come from? A few months ago when Colin Kaepernick was taking a knee, everybody was against him.
Well, yeah, because companies care about profits, okay? That's why they're in business. So a company has to be seen to be caring about social issues that are affecting society. If a company says nothing, it would also an implication that they don't care. And if people feel that this company doesn't care, then that will affect them as a business, that will affect their brand, that will affect their reputation, and therefore that will affect the money that they make. So I do think to some extent, not all, but I do think to some extent there is a case of companies, organizations just kind of saying what they need to say to appear to be relevant and to care and to appease people. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, no,
I do think there is an element of that, yes.
Well, I mean, you say appease, it come to my mind, but go on.
Yeah, and I think that's the case with a lot of people as well. I'm seeing a lot of people, saying, Black Lives Matter, anti-racism and all that kind of thing. But these are the same people that I remember used to say all sorts of racist stuff. For example, I grew up, in a town called Aylesbury, as you know. Now, I'm not on social media at the moment, but I have seen certain things that people in Aylesbury have been saying. And I think to myself, okay, when I was growing up there, these were not your views. Yeah, this was not your train of thought. Now, I accept that people can change.
Of course.
People's mindset can change. Of course they can. And I do accept that, people change. But I just think, is that really what you think? Or are you saying that because that's what socially you're supposed to be saying now? Does that make, do you understand?
No,
that's
definitely.
what I think. Yeah, I think there's an element of that now.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, there's a couple.
People have two faces. People have two faces. They have the face that what they really think behind closed doors, and then they have the face that you have when they're in public, what's socially acceptable. And I think there's an element of that. People are kind of like, they have two faces, and that's reflected in their actions.
Yeah, no, you're right. Some people are definitely very two-faced, and especially in this society that we're living now. You made a couple of interesting points, and one of them I'd attest and say, yeah, there is sort of that level, because even myself, I spent a few years, I've traveled and traveled the world. I've been so many places, but no, I've traveled and lived in some places that I haven't felt comfortable there being a Black male because of the hostilities of the environment. I mean, even to last year, I ain't gonna put no areas on blast, but people even saw the footage online with me being accosted by police just for riding a bike, and not just the police, the attitude from some of the people that you just get, the looks, the treatment and stuff, and the sort of inherent way of thinking that they're superior, which in a good thing, I suppose, in some aspect, now is being just spoken about more in society. Like that veil's been lifted because, people are just acting like it didn't exist. But however, similar to yourself, I mean, I've saw people from that town now where they'll probably be like, hey, Black Lives Matter and stuff. But, just shy a few months ago, would you have made a Black person feel comfortable or like their life actually mattered? Or is this something that you're just saying now because this is the thing to say, and you don't want to be one of those who aren't saying it? Because as we know of a lot of people, especially different types of individuals, they like to look at others and say, well, you know, ha ha, he, you're not doing the right thing. So there's sort of that mentality now where a lot of people are looking at even some of their own people and saying, oh, well, how ignorant are you if you still think like that? Or, you know, I've sort of, we've evolved past that now. You're, you know, what are you thinking? You know, it's sort of, there's a lot of that going on. However, some say, you know, it could be scriptural or line up with biblical proportions and things like a covering has been lifted off some of these people's eyes. But then some say, you know, within that, it's a bit late for a lot of that too. But that's kind of another topic.
Yeah, I mean, on a related note, I mean, this whole situation is going to make people question their own attitudes. It's going to make them look in the mirror, you know, because like you said, a lot of these attitudes and these mentalities are ingrained. It's something they've thought for all their lives, probably passed down from, you know, all the generations within their family.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to change people's mentality that's been ingrained for years, if not decades.
Of course.
So this is gonna make people question their thoughts on race. They may have had prejudicial attitudes before, and hopefully this will make them change. This will make them realize that it's not right. What, you know, how society thinks on certain ethnic groups is not right, and this has brought it to the fore now. So, you know, every cloud has a silver lining, and I think there is, if we can say some good to come out of this, there could be that, you know.
Yeah, no.
It's just a shame it took something of this proportion for it to bring about that change, you know.
Well,
or potential change, I should say, because nothing's actually changed yet.
Of course. Well, with that being said, this is where we're going to chime into not so much the conspiracy aspects, but even there was a second point that, you know, you spun me off onto in the last conversation, and it was the point of how people are, if people are just following this thing, is this sort of a prelude to something else to get them into following something else? Now, one of the things that a lot of people have been saying online, and we've had, you know, some users sending messages and ask us these questions, you know, they've mentioned this guy, George Soros. They've mentioned the feminist movement. They say the Black Lives Matter is headed up by, you know, 3 women, and they're from the LGBT community, and it's sort of a segue to get people to be more tolerant towards LGBT, but using Black Lives Matter as sort of an axiom where it's like, okay, well, you know, let's accept Black people because that's the common denominator where everybody, whether they say it or not, people see and know you as the most downtrodden people on the face of the earth. Because, you know, and, you know, even we've seen South Asians and certain people come out with videos online now, mainly females, and saying things like, our community think this about Black people and this and that. Be honest, like there's more people speaking out and stuff now and saying the racism isn't just from white people, it's from, you know, others on a wider scale. We can tie that similarly into America, where we've seen in certain communities, even Latinos and certain people, you know, coming and taking stance against Black people, because as much as they live side by side in the communities, there's that kind of, you know, animosity in some form. It's kind of similar to how we have it in a bit here in the UK, but on a different degree. But so with that being said, you know, do you think this BLM thing is like a segue into maybe now, you know, because I've been to some of these marches and it's not just Black Lives Matter, it's Black Lives Trans Matter, Black Lives, you know, LGBT matters, all of that's in there too. You know, there's most of the protests seem heavily threatened by women and stuff as well. Not to say that's a bad thing, but we got to ask the questions. People have sent them into us, you know, this is what people are asking. Is this a segue into something else? Is this for the intention of, you know, let's make Black Lives Matter? Is it going to get, you know, new stuff in the curriculum and stuff? But, or is it just going to go somewhere else and open the conversation for other life matters or all life matters, like what everybody said?
Well, to answer your question, I think to some extent, I mean, my perspective, and I think I speak for a lot of people, is that no matter what group you're part of, what ethnic group or whatever your sexuality is, no one should be discriminated against for, you know, their race, sexuality, or anything else, or you know, whether male, female, or whatever. But I do think there is an element of people jumping on the Black Lives Matter bandwagon. For example, you alluded to it then. You talked about the LGBT community. Now, I do think that, and this has happened throughout history, whenever Black people kind of campaign against injustice, what you see is you see other groups who feel their injustice as well kind of getting involved. But as you said then, some of those other groups that are getting involved have negative views on Black people. So they're saying, oh, injustice this, injustice that. But they need to look at themselves, some of them, and question their views as well, because we think of racism and that kind of thing as from white people.
Exactly.
But the truth is, it could be from any other ethnic group as well. You know, for example, with the coronavirus, we saw in China, some of the African communities were kind of blamed for the coronavirus in China.
Very badly, yeah.
Yeah, they were kicked out of houses. One pregnant woman was allowed to go into the hospital in Wuhan, and I thought to myself, this is out of order. This coronavirus has nothing to do with the African communities in China. So I do think there's an element that other groups are jumping on the bandwagon, but they need to perhaps question some of their own ideologies they have. But like I say, this always kind of happens when Black people kind of campaign and protest. Other groups try to get involved as well.
Well, I mean,
this was happening in the civil rights movement back in the 60s with Martin Luther King.
That's how women got their rights after the back.
Exactly, they got their rights off the back of that. And you have to think to yourself,
well, I mean, they just signed a new bill.
Why do Black people always have to be the catalyst
for the
change?
They just signed a new bill in America, you know, for LGBTQ rights, where they've just, you know, got equal rights in the workplace and stuff like that, and a few other things. I got to read up a bit more on it, but that's fresh as of today, you know. So kudos.
Yeah, exactly. And like I say, if they're getting new rights, then that's a good thing.
But as you said, why does it have to always be off the back of
the catalyst for the change?
Yeah, and does the black message then get lost sometimes afterwards? Because do we seemingly as a society then move on to something else? Say, okay, now then it's women's rights. Okay, now it's, you know, LGBT right, and
it gets overshadowed.
Will some of the people, like you alluded to earlier, that have maybe just jumped on because there's a trend, and you know, it's during a lockdown period where people can sort of break isolation and even be socially cool and seem to be responsible and go get some pictures for their social media. And, you know, I was at the protest, and, you know, but will they continue that message forward, a lot of them afterwards? Will they, you know, this is what I did a video not too long ago. I woke up in the morning, and I think you seen it, because you was like, I seemed kind of angry, and I was like, you know, I'm Black every day, motherfucker. Like, you know, I'm like, I can't switch this up, you know, ain't no, you know, because I'm seeing all these people fretting online and all this stuff and this, that, and the third, and I'm like, you know, I had a moment, but it's all good, man.
Yeah, well, I mean, it begs the question: if Black people didn't protest, would these other groups have had their change? You know. Would the change have happened for the, you know, the feminist movement, rights for women, and the LGBT community? Would their change have happened? You know, would they have protested in the first place?
No.
You know what I mean? You understand where I'm coming from there?
No, of course. I mean, but to think, you know, just shy a few months ago, we had even in the UK, we had, you know, people from the Muslim and the Asian community protesting against LGBT and stuff, almost all the teachings, I guess, in the schools. But you're right, we didn't really see any counter protests or counter demos from them. But, you know, they have found a voice within the whole BLM thing, because it's, you know, some say if one group is oppressed, it's a representation of every group being oppressed. So, and, you know, Black always going to be the common denominator for everybody anyway, whether they sort of admit it or not. So it's like, I guess through this, it's definitely an axiom, as you said, after Black sort of struggle. Everybody got struggle after that struggle, because we've seen even videos of people coming out in Brazil and certain places saying, hey, this is how they treat us out here. And, you know, we got black in us, and we you know, some of we know our history and our heritage and stuff, and it's similar with like the Latinos and stuff who, you know, share some ancestry, but some of them don't see that. I mean, we seen Fat Joe recently. He did a video or something, and he was talking about it, saying, you know, we like black, man, and you know, this, you know, kind of breaking it down. But at the same time, sometimes a lot of these others, they kind of jock us for our culture and jock us for our, you know, the game and everything that they get from us, you know, and we get some stuff from them too, but they jock us from a lot of stuff, but then they don't really want to give us our propers as well at the same time, and there's a lot of that, I think.
Exactly, that's what's up. But it's good to see, you know, this has grabbed the world's attention. You know,
Oh, yeah.
countries all around. I mean, I even saw protests in Argentina, Buenos Aires. You know, I mean, I'm not aware that there's a big African diaspora in Argentina, but you know, it's literally everyone's kind of, you know, getting involved. And like I said, my hope is that this will change people's attitudes, because at the end of the day, we have to live in this world together.
Yeah, no, of course, actual fact. I mean, when I spoke at the Birmingham March, that was a sentiment of what I said to all the people on the mic. You know, I mean, I haven't seen nobody pop up with any decent footage yet, but to be honest, I didn't do it for the footage. I did it for the message. And I spoke to people, and I said that exactly. I said, just as everybody's here now, you know, in huge form and of different nationalities, and that, you know, it's not just here in this moment. That it's like that in every moment. That's how the world's made up. So don't just have that energy here now for everybody, and everybody's cool and stuff. And when you go back home, it's different. Or when you go back to, you know, to your group, you keep that lit. You know what I mean? And that's
exactly. I mean,
one thing I was proud of, just to kind of mirror that sort of last point, was I was proud to see a lot of the young people who were sort of like that now, because they don't share a lot of the same mentalities of some of their cultural elders, you know.
Well, exactly, because the young people are the future, and the young people have been exposed to different cultures from day one.
Exactly.
Whereas the older generations haven't. So that's why I think the younger people may have a different attitude to some of the older generations, which is a great thing. But my thing is that we just have to keep this up. You know, we can't just have this. It's now June 2020. This can't be just the thing for now, and then in 3 months' time, everyone's kind of forgotten about it and gone back to their old ways.
Well,
otherwise, there's no point of even doing this whole thing now.
Of course.
You've got, you know,
with that, we got to
permanent change.
Yeah, no, it was kind of cutting up a bit. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah. So what I was saying is, there's got to be a permanent change now. This, you know, this has to be a year from now. This has to have made a difference. 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years down the line. Not just, okay, this is it now. Yeah, we're going to change, and then a month later. Because quite often what you see happens is people, you know, there's a big hoo-ha, and then after a month, people forget about it. It's like, I'll give you another example. It's like, you know, poverty in Africa, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
People make a big deal out of it, and they want to donate, they want to see change. But you know, give it a month, everyone's kind of forgotten about it and gone back to their normal lives. And you think to yourself, well, you know, did it really change anything? So I just hope there's a big change.
Yeah, no, hopefully. I mean, you know, one thing's for certain, change gonna come. I mean, Dave Chappelle said it best. This is a moment of change, and sort of well, he kind of said this is like one of the last moments within this stretch for civil discourse. And he said after that, it's just rat-a-tat-tat-titty, tat-tat-tat-tat-tat. Some say there's a war coming. And, you know, I make light about some serious things, but it doesn't denote the seriousness of the topic. So I just want to put that out there, because people think, you know, I'm talking about wars and you know, making light, but that's just how we approach life sometimes. But, it is scary sometimes, because some of the things that we do see sort of looming nowadays are very eerily similar to just how a lot of wars sort of set up. But some say we're already in a war. It's like a spiritual war, so we're fighting on a different plane this time, you know. So there's so much different battles going on, you know, mentally. Even out there in the streets, people going crazy, you know. But it's definitely my favorite phrase at the minute is tumultuous times. That's all I keep telling you. It's tumultuous time.
Yeah, the Bible talks about these things. God's kingdom's coming back. We don't know when, but we know God's kingdom is coming back. And when God's kingdom comes back, that will erase all evil from the world, all bad people from the world. It's talked about this in scriptures. And essentially what it's saying is when God's kingdom comes back, it'll come back forever. That's forever and ever. There's no other kingdom will ever come back once God's kingdom comes back. So, but what the Bible says is that before God's kingdom comes back, things will get worse. There will be war, there will be famine, there will be earthquakes. And this is what we're seeing now.
Well,
so we know God's
kingdom, I mean,
we don't know when, but we do know that things will get worse before they get better. So we have to almost just accept that things are bad, but know that in the long term, things will be good. Because when God's kingdom comes, it's heaven on earth, as it says in the Lord's Prayer.
Amen.
Things will be on earth as they are in heaven. And so when that happens, that's when we know God's kingdom has returned. So just anyone who's feeling down or negative, just keep that in mind, that God's kingdom is returning. And when it does return, everything will be perfect.
Well, there you go. But as you said, we got to go through these tumultuous times before we get there, because unfortunately, you know, a lot's been done down here on this planet. And it's like you said, some things, yeah, we can have a change in mentality, but it doesn't then just change things overnight. You know,
Exactly. Yeah. But I do feel there's been a slight regression, in race relations because of this. As time goes on, race relations should be getting better. I feel we're going backwards because obviously you had the EDL, the far right counter protest, and they were clashing with the police and with the So it feels like we're going back to the olden days. We're going back a couple of decades, which is bad. But we'll see how things pan out.
Yeah, no,
only time will tell.
I think we can see it sort of going that sort of way, man. As you said, my thing was with even those guys, if they was so patriotic, they would have been at the march with the other citizens. But some of them, they say it's not down to them being against BLM. They're saying they're against the organization behind BLM. And they're saying that because the organization is run by feminists, they've created a sort of divide between the masculines, and they're trying to get them to fight each other. So they say,
Yeah.
I mean,
there is that.
Any credence to that?
Well, there might be. There might be. But I just think that behind a lot of these organizations, there's people who are pulling the strings. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
I definitely think there's people behind these organizations pulling the strings and trying to determine what goes on. And those people are not out there on the front line, so to speak. You know what I mean? They're kind of behind the scenes doing their thing. So I'm referring to all different protests as well, whether it be LGBT or feminist or Black Lives Matter or whatever it is.
Yeah, of course.
That's just.
Yeah, no. Some say there's that, man. I think it was Bobby Hemmett that said stay away from most of these big organizations, but it's organize yourself first, or at least organize yourself. I think that's the issue, because people can too easily walk into an organization and expect them to put everything together for them.
Exactly.
And as you said, sometimes up the bridge, up the channel, up the line, there's somebody with an agenda, and you may not know it. So, but with that being said, overall, are you positive about the whole BLM movement and what it's achieved so far? Some say it's achieved. There's a whole list of legislative things that they say that it's achieved.
Well, basically, what I think is I'm glad these injustices that have been happening for decades have been brought to light, because the truth is people have got cameras on their phones now, so we're able to capture what's been happening for years.
More of it,
or there was no proof or evidence, but now there is. So I'm glad that's been brought to light now. What I can say is that, it's fine to protest and voice your opinion, but you got to do it in the right way. I don't agree with the looting, in burning down businesses and all that kind of thing, and people's cars and people's homes. I'm against that kind of thing.
I mean, a lot of that to say that there's evidence to say was done by saboteurs.
Yeah, yeah, there is that as well. But you know, your voice has got to be heard. I'm glad that people are protesting. I'm glad that people are getting out there for the
Yeah.
people of all races are getting out there for the injustices. But I just hope there's a change in society. You know, we've all got to love each other. You know, in the words of Bob Marley, one love.
Right, man. So, with that being said, man, you tuned in DOATBM. We've been discussing everything BLM and everything in between, everything around the subject matter. So, let us know your thoughts. Drop us a line and tap in with us next time. Any last words, D?
Yeah, basically, I just think it's time for all of us to come together as a society. You know, like we said earlier, we've all got to live together, whether it's in the UK, USA, South America, wherever it is, we've all got to live together. So let's just make the best of it and just come together. We're all humans, we all bleed red. So that's my opinion. We're all the same.
Do you believe that? On the last note, I know I know everybody says it before we signed off. You know that one just kind of just jumped
you
out.
might think it's a cliche, but ultimately we are all human beings. You know, we're the same.
You know, we're of the same.
Yeah,
We're of the same
so,
strand. You know, obviously different phenotypes and stuff, but because you often hear people say, and especially even like in a society that's functioned under racism for so long, sometimes that's been people's excuse. They still inhibit the signs of being prejudiced and stuff, and you know, looking at others or dehumanizing others, and maybe we can all be guilty of it in different ilks, but then we come back to that statement and say, oh yeah, but we're all human. So I was just wondering, is it something that, do you think we truly believe that, or do you think
something that I truly believe.
Yeah, okay.
Something that I truly believe, but I do think a lot of people don't believe that, and that's why we're seeing this racism still exist in 2020. I believe that we are all, this human, we're the same. But yeah, of course, there's people out there who don't think that.
You know, because they got their anthropologists and stuff. They study and they study the blood, study the, we ultimately got the same organs and stuff like that. But they study, I guess, just the strands or where we come from. We got slightly into some science here now. Some may call it pseudoscience, but anthropology would say there's different types, and then it's like we say, the Western man would say we came from the monkey, which is their theory, but it's not actually true. Then you got the Neanderthal predation theory. You've got just different concepts of what the Neanderthal was and where the Neanderthal sprout from, and how the Neanderthal then formed some of these other modern humans. But is that the same for the sub-Saharan African? They say that was a completely different genetic strand. So I don't know.
Well, we're talking about DNA. They say there's a bigger difference in DNA in the African continent alone than there is between people from Africa and people who now reside in other parts of the world. That's, again, I'm not an expert on DNA, so I perhaps I don't want to go down that path. But between different groups in Africa, let's say someone from West Africa and someone from Southern Africa, there's a bigger difference in DNA there than someone from, I don't know, Asia or something. But again, I'm not an expert on that, so it's not something that I want to.
I think that maybe
I like to talk about. I like to talk about things that I have experience and knowledge on.
Yeah, no, that may be down to how they may have mixed people in and stuff, because
yeah, exactly.
When they talk about, I've done a bit of studies on it, but when they speak of sub-Saharan DNA, that's sort of like a separate sect, and it's similar because even when you speak about the Bible and stuff like that, some say there were different sons, Ham, different tribes and different, those represent different groups of even people on this planet. So a lot of this stuff is scientific. There's a scientific aspect to even, just what we're told as well. There's major correlations on the scale of a lot of these things. But ultimately, with that being said, I know we went slightly on the science tangent, but we are, like, I will reiterate my statements. We're all down here together, regardless, And some say the craziest thing, like if an alien or somebody from a different planet was to look down there, they'll see us all as the same anyway, because we all have the same function. Yeah, we may just have different skin or whatever and phenotypes and stuff, but ultimately they say we're the same. We're not, any different. So it's more maybe some say it's more of a social construct. Yeah, there may definitely be phenotypical and genetical differences, but in terms of race relations, it could be mended via a better social construct.
Exactly.
Which would allow people to even explore their races and differences, but understand and appreciate and value each other for how they are, without the incessant need for one to want to placate themselves above the other. But is that just a part of some's nature? Is it part of human nature to want to be better than the other? So, or is it part of just the lower nature of man? So these are things I ponder. But ponder with us next time. So yeah, we tuning in DOATBM. I'm about to sign this one off for this week. Stay woke and always look out for your folk.